roll call. Clint Rosino is
Clint
here.
Rosino's here, finally.
Paul's here. John Pintek is not here, but we have a quorum. We have two or more folks. Okay, call to the public. If anybody wants to talk, if you want to talk about one of the dockets, we'll call in there later.
This docket, we have several dockets here,
Two dockets.
two dockets, I'm here for 25 on speed.
Don't know which one is 20.
It's the first one.
First one? Yeah. Okay, I'll let you speak then, if you want to speak now.
But I prefer to speak after,
Okay,
because I think I'm going to close in the meeting.
okay. What we'll do is Matt will give his talk, and then the applicant gets 10 minutes, and then other people, 4 get 5 minutes each, and the applicant gets,
So I'm sorry, I didn't hear the
Paul Britt, the chairman
chairman.
of this.
Thank you both.
Yeah,
I didn't hear it. I'm sorry.
okay.
Thank you.
Okay, well, we'll proceed then. So, no public is speaking, and they're going to speak later. Okay. Now, Lynn, have you read the minutes?
I have read the minutes.
And I hear a motion,
I'll make a motion, we approve the minutes of the prior meeting.
and I'll second it. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. I have one question, Christine. There's a place for me to sign the bottom of those. Do I sign them or do you sign them for me?
It's not necessary, it's completed electronically.
Okay, good. All righty. Well, we'll begin the public hearing. Okay, we'll open the public hearing now. Docket BAR 25-03. Applicant initiated variance request from section 2.51.130 to the zoning regulations to reduce the minimum required 50-foot setback for horse corral shade structure to 0 feet along the south and west property line. Property is located at 1421 North Cemetery Road, near Benson, but in Pomona. At this time, I will call for the planner's presentation. Matt, all yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a staff presentation for docket VAR 25-03. This is a setback request, as you stated, along Cemetery Road. The applicant is Joseph Valentine. The property is located at 1421 North Cemetery Road. Tax parcel number 208470443. The property is zoned R18, which is a residential zoning district. The variance request is from section 2.51.130 of the zoning regulations, reducing minimum setbacks for a corral and corral shade structure. And the property is located approximately 1 mile northeast of Benson. The property is also surrounded by other parcels zoned R18, and these properties range from approximately 1/2 acre to more than 2 acres. The applicant has provided a site plan of the property showing the location of the approximately 2,400 square foot horse corral with a approximately 120 square foot shade structure within that corral. This is a drone image. This would be viewing more or less to the north. The area highlighted in black at the lower right-hand corner is the corral area. And at the top right-hand corner of that blackened area is the shade structure. Another image, this would be viewing to the west. This would be another image viewing to the northwest. And this is an overhead of the corral shade structure showing it's not really perfectly square. It is approximately 0 feet from the south property line. It's more like 5 feet from the west property line along Cemetery Road. And the shade structure itself does have somewhat of a setback. We're guessing about 5 feet. Just a little bit of background on this section of the zoning regulations. Livestock is defined as cattle, horses, llamas, alpacas, goats, mules, donkeys, swine, ostriches, and emus. The zoning regulations require parcels to have a minimum square footage of 36,000 square feet. The applicant's property does exceed that. So they do have, per the zoning regulations, the authority to have large animals, i.e. livestock on the property. Animals shall be confined and restrained unless exempted under some other condition. In this particular case, it's a 1 acre lot, 1 acre residential lot. Stables, barns, corrals, piles of manure aren't structures, but they do create somewhat of a nuisance. Shade structures must be a minimum of 50 feet from the property line. In other words, any structure that leads to the congregation of animals within 50 feet from the property line is prohibited by the zoning regulations.
Could you speak just a little?
Yeah, you can certainly come up.
That's all right.
Okay. And of course, compliance with any applicable other local, state, or federal laws is required as well. So as the board is aware, there's 8 factors that are used to determine the suitability of a variance. Among those are hardships, peculiar site conditions, that a hardship is not self-created, the minimum to afford relief, the use must be a permitted use of the zoning regulations. The variance cannot permit a use that creates adverse impacts to surrounding property owners. The variance would have to remain in harmony with the zoning regulations, and there would be no violation of state or federal law. Staff executed the public notification process between 11 and 16 April, publishing a legal ad, mailing notices, and posting the property. So we mailed 21 notices to property owners within 300 feet. We received 7 responses in favor and 2 in opposition. We did actually receive an additional response in favor from the property owner to the northwest that resides at 1428 Cemetery Road. She did not withdraw her support, but she was initially supportive of the application, but later said that she no longer wanted to participate in the process because she felt that it was becoming overly heated, that there was some conflicts going on, and that she no longer wanted to participate in the process. She
You got
again,
the yellow one there?
yes, sir. So the variance does comply with 5 of the required criteria. Another factor in favor would be that the closest residence is at least 60 feet from the corral, and there is a stockade fence that separates that residence from the corral. And as you saw on the map, Mr. Chair and Mr. Briceño, the applicant has received support from multiple adjacent property owners. Factors against would be the typical 3 criteria we see with variances that are difficult for applicants to meet, which involve hardships, peculiar site conditions, or a circumstance that's not self-created. Mr. Chairman and board members, that concludes staff's presentation of docket variance 25-03. We are available for your questions and the applicant is present, as your worship.
Any questions?
On Star, like yellow stars.
Okay.
That, when did the applicant move the property? What year did he move onto this property?
What year did you move? I think that's
1999.
19.
And then with the zoning, this zoning regulation was passed in what year?
Mr. Chairman, the current zoning regulations were adopted in January of 1975.
The question is, was he just unaware, or did he check into the regulations? I guess
Totally
it's not
unaware.
to the applicant himself.
Totally unaware.
And the reason for that,
Yes,
Sir.
yes, that's me.
Yeah.
Can you,
If we could let that.
Yes.
For like its
Hold that thought till later. Yes. Okay. And we declare the hearing open now, and you have 10 minutes to state your case.
Yeah, I don't see, I mean, I got most of my neighbors that are okay with it, especially the neighbor right next to the fence. He has no problem with it whatsoever. He can't smell no odor of it, no, nothing. He's right there where you see the wood fence. That's where the thing, he has no problem at all. We pretty much keep it maintained the best as we can. He's well fed, well watered. If we do have to move it, it would have to be a lot smaller. So, and we just don't think it's fair to, I mean, the horse has been there in that location for 12 years. And never had a problem, never had an issue. So, I mean, we would have to move that pen, which was, what?
Almost literally a
5
house.
feet wide by, what was it, 100 feet long?
Yeah.
Be really, really narrow fence for him to even be. So this is, he has room to run. I mean, their neighbor right across the street has no problem with it at all. So, yeah,
Horses standing in pens tend to get arthritis. Stormy has arthritis, and to shrink him down into another pen is to cause him agonizing pain. So on that behalf, he still has a lot of room to move around. When he is standing, when I'm not riding or when I'm not taken out of his pen, he still can move. The big factor in Stormy is he needs to move. He needs to be able to get around and move because him standing is not good for him. Not for anything. And for any horse's digestional tract, as far as that from colic and stuff, it is very well for them to move as well, to move around. Because once a horse colics, it's over. So with him being able to move the bit that he can, if he goes into one of those episodes, there's a fair chance that he might live. But if he goes into a small pen where he can't move and I'm not home, and he's not able to move around, because that's what you do. You walk a horse when they colic in hopes that they start pooping and stuff, because horses can't throw up. I mean, so that's a bad part on, the horse's part and maybe my part, choosing an animal that can't throw up and let stuff out of their system. But this horse needs to move. It's fair to him to have a pen. Why not? We have areas that we walk in as adults in other people's yards. Our animals potty in other people's yards and we clean it up, right? So, it's fair to him that we exercise our animals on other people's streets. Sometimes they go into their yards. It's fair to Stormy to have the ability to move around and be able to exercise in his remaining years, of the 18 years that he is. So if he does get sick or something happens, I can move around in his pen, and he can move around in his pen as well. And a horse standing in a small pen, flies are a big factor in it. And Stormy is a gray. And once the flies tend to eat them up, they come back every year, which it happens to him every year. So, the manure on the side is a factor. We can clean it up. I drag it. But as far as like the fly and stuff like that go, we have fans on him. We also have a thing we're getting ready to put up. But it isn't about cleaning up the manure. The flies will be less. Flies are prone to horses regardless of what we do. So it is what it is. We're going to deal with it, the sores and stuff. Him being in a bigger pen makes it a little bit easier for me to handle him and take care of him and put his blankets on, bandage him. I have the ability to, if I want to keep him in his pen if he's injured or to let him out. So the big thing, Stormy's never done anything, and this pen has worked for him. It may not work for others, but it works for him and helps him and gives him a chance to move around and be mobile, because no one is confining us to our houses when our joints hurt and we can't move in a seat. What do? We get up and go. So this is fair. This is totally fair. He's done nothing. No one has a problem with him. No one's ever said anything. The kids have loved him. I mean, he's just a good brown horse, and his pen fits him. And if we could make it bigger, we would. But that just doesn't. It just seems really big. But because of our structures that we have around this.
this side of the fan, you have room to run, move around. The seat structure, I mean, it's plenty big enough for them. They do have solar fans connected in them that blows on them all day long till the sun goes down. But guys, I don't know why it would be a nuisance for somebody, but I would say we've been there 12 years, no problems.
He's not new to us and it's new. He's been with me since the day he was bought up. And I've always provided really good care for him. Making sure that he has the room to do the things he needs to do.
Yeah, the guy right there in the fence, his girlfriend comes over and pets the horse and feeds him carrots. And so,
And you just want a variance for that.
So we don't have to
Corral.
need the pen, yeah,
yeah,
that's
the
it,
penner.
Yeah,
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 because,
not where he's at.
well,
you're gonna keep the shade structure and
Yeah.
everything,
Yeah,
everything like that.
they checked her and then things. That's it.
And if I remember on the application, it is one horse that is there.
One.
there was one.
Correct.
And Matt, did I see it, in the notes, that there, while we look at the motion, that there could be some type of verbiage for limiting the amount of, we'll call it livestock. Is that correct, or?
Mr. Chairman, Board Member Presenio, we are recommending a condition to limit the number of livestock on the property. Um, That's obviously at the board's discretion. But there is another condition too, and I didn't want to get into it too much
You
detail.
don't have to, I just want to
Okay.
clarify that. Yeah, and I don't want to take up your time, but the pen was, this pen was originally constructed in 1999, is that correct?
No, this pen, no, not that.
This was done in 2011.
Okay, 2011.
Yeah. It was the only livestock we have. One horse.
Yeah, that's
One
only
thing.
we're not looking for, we're not looking for, again, any more livestock or anything like that. We're just trying to keep him comfortable with what, whatever years he has left. And so,
Anything else?
I don't think so.
Okay. Okay, now we can have comments from other folks. State your name, where you live in relation to there, and speak your piece. You have 5 minutes.
Thank you. My name is Randall Barnes. I live on Cemetery Road. The address is 1434 North Cemetery Road. My assessor's number is 208-44-032.
Just 1 second. Can you put there, which place is yours?
On Cemetery Road, I'm on the west side, 2 doors down next to the yellow inscribed.
Okay, you're the red X.
Yes, sir. That's 1434. I can't read it.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay,
So I received notice on this variance request in the middle of March. About a week later, Bill Valentine and his wife visited me and asked me to vote for their force in favor of it. He described, after he made his case, I asked him directly, well, what does the county say? Bill replied to me that his problem was with the neighbor to the south, and the neighbor to the south had no complaints. I said, what is the setback requirement? 50 feet to the south. He never mentioned the setback from Cemetery Road. He never mentioned it, period. I didn't realize what the variance request was until I got a letter from the county. Mentions nothing about the neighbor to the south. But the mention is to the setback requirement from Cemetery Road. Both requirements are 50 feet, as I read it. 50 feet has been there since 1975, before he ever moved there. The owner's responsibility is to check the regulations and the zoning. If he decides to buy a piece of property, do whatever he wants with it, it is his duty, especially if his lovely wife owns a pet horse and doesn't want any kind of problems. But he didn't describe the problem as it truly is. The person in the yellow frame there came to see me after she received the letter, and she explained to me that Joe Valentine explained to her the same thing, that the problem was with the property immediately to the south. And he never mentioned the setback requirement on Cemetery Road. I said, well, look, it said right here on the very thing there that you got, that this is the setback requirement on Cemetery Road. She was totally unaware of that. And I said, well, how did you vote? She said, I voted and it's okay, but now, I didn't understand it. And I said to her, well, will you change your vote? She said, no, I will not, because it would be a change of vote, whatever you want to call it. And in addition to that, she had fearful repercussions from Joe Valentine if she voted against him. That was her direct statement to me. I said, well, you're a coward. And she got mad and left. So in brief statement, I'd like to make quickly here the 6 reasons that I voted against this variance. First of all, it's totally against the zoning law. We don't have zoning law. What are we doing here? And that's the whole purpose of zoning laws. So the first reason is he acquired this property after the property zoning was in 1975, approximately in 1999. He didn't do his due diligence for the zoning regulations. That is on him, not on us. Second thing I'd like to say is his action of placing a horse corral and shade room on it with 0 setback when 50 feet is required on both sides is an extreme violation. This isn't 20 feet, 10 feet, it's 0 feet. Fence is bent down where his horse has been leaning over the fence on Cemetery Road. So because it's an extreme violation, his request is extreme. The third thing I'd like to say is this variance, if granted, will harm the property owners, not just now, but in the future. Perhaps the guy on the south side that doesn't complain now, he sells the place, the new owner very well may not like a 0 fence. So how do you answer that? He's gonna have to come back in court and fight the variance that you guys approved? And how do I explain to the California buyer that I don't have a horse property, but my neighbor does for some reason because he has a variance? So his property is now worth more than mine because he keeps a horse. The fifth thing is,
If you could conclude it.
real quickly, 2 more things. Zoning regulations are designed for the general good of the public, not a single landowner. If you rule on this variance as a single landowner, I would say that you're not doing your due diligence as the zoning committee. And finally, what perturbs me most about this is Joe Valentine misrepresented what his setback was to me directly, saying that was setback for the south property, and the south property owner did not mind. He never mentioned the setback on Cemetery Road until I found out from the county. Well, that was my business.
Thank you. Anybody else want to speak?
Kind of liked it, but I don't want it to sound whiny. State your name, state your name.
How long have you lived there?
I moved there in approximately 99, 98.
Okay.
My name is Joanne Mazza. I'm married to Carl Johnson. Mr. Johnson has owned his property since the late 1960s, okay, so he has lived there for a very long time. Most of us who leave the cities and what have you and move to the outer regions do so that we have a little room to breathe and to have a little bit of freedom. I understand that I do not want to sound like zoning laws are to be ignored. They are not. But when you have lived there for 40 years, 50 years, and everybody around you, and again, that doesn't make it right, has chickens, and they have a pig, and they have a goat, and by God, I see a little goat, and I want it, why would I go and check a zoning law when none of this is ever taking place? Because we're getting crowded out day by day, more people are moving in, and zoning laws are maybe now going to be adhered to. That's okay. Give us some time. Let's do some readjustment if that's what's going to be, because we're now going to have hundreds of people instead of tens of people. I'm sorry that you feel you were misrepresented, but these people have been there. I've got neighbors down on the other side of us who has a horse. If anybody touches our horse, I may not be responsible. Leave our horses alone. It's one horse. And that's why we moved to this part of the country. And if we don't like it, we can move out. If somebody buys our property and doesn't like it, then yes, maybe we need to go to court and adjust to that. But I just can't imagine when I go plant my potatoes out there. So what? Is there something going against that? That's why we're there.
You have 5 minutes to, unless someone else. No, I don't, okay.
5 minutes?
5 minutes.
I'm sorry, you felt like you were told wrong, but I totally did tell you it's a 50-foot variance for property line. That means the road and the side. And I was just down there just letting you know that you might be getting a paper in the mail. I wasn't begging for your approval or any of that, how that matters. So, and did I know about that? No, I have no idea. I guarantee you most of the people that have horses don't know about that 50-foot setback either. I never knew. If I would have known, I would have done it different, but I had no clue. I've known people out there with horses. The guy behind me, he had 2 horses on his property. Never had a problem there. The lady on the other corner had a horse. Never had a problem. I never know. So that's why he's built there, and that's where we have the most room for him to run, you know. And we were trying to keep it away from the closer neighbors and stuff like that. And out by the road, you know, the kids would come down from school. They would save their carrots from lunch and walk by and feed the horse.
And the fence is down, but he has panels that are away from the fence that he cannot get through.
Yeah,
So
the
he's-
fence is being fixed in the front,
Yeah,
but he
can't
has
get
horse
to it.
panels.
he can't
Up
get to his
basically all
panels.
the way around. And yeah, he can't even get to that main fence. That's a setback from the 5 feet. So there's no way to even get to that fence. And I mean, we're not asking for, you know, 30 years of this. We're just long, you know, I mean, he might have another 5 years. We're just asking for the time that he has to have this, we can keep it there for his time.
That's only fair. These people get their houses to live out.
We're not asking for something permanent or like that, or bringing in any more animals or anything like that. Just, you know, keep them comfortable and, just a fence big enough that he can run and walk around in. And so, and then to move that, to be that 50-foot, it would be really small. Taken away from him. So,
Alrighty, we will close this hearing.
May I ask one more question?
No, no, you had your time. Sorry. We'll close the public hearing.
Just so you know, it's regarding the law. He just made a statement how it's a temporary deal.
Looks like it's 30 minutes at a time.
Continuing to the next.
No more, no more. Hold your time.
It's closed.
Okay, now it's our discussion.
This is your neck of the woods.
I didn't even know his neighbor.
That's enough.
Over the hill.
Yeah, yeah.
It's interesting, you mentioned the goats and the chickens and the pigs and the, having grown up here my whole life and seeing, being part of, you know, being out in rural areas and seeing that more and more people come in. And it definitely changes the scene. It does.
Yes. Okay. And in answer to Mr. Barnes, that's what this body is. On the zoning regulations, they adopt zoning regulations a big bunch at a time. And the Board of Adjustment, and they don't fit. One size does not fit all. So the Board of Adjustment is here to relieve people that are impacted by adverse regulations. So that's what this body is. And so, another discussion? Let's hear what Matt is.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I did want to note that we did receive a letter of support from the lady that left before we started the public hearing, Ms. Lawrence. She did not provide her address, but she did want this added to the record.
She's behind them, she'd be northeast of the property.
We have a letter next to the guy that did the fence too, that our horse fence is on.
Mr. Chairman, also, the applicant didn't discuss this, but during our initial consultation about the variance application, we noted that because of the property's almost perfectly square shaped, 200 by 200, and the location of the residence, the zoning regulations allow livestock if you have at least 36,000 square feet, but that 50-foot setback for a corral or a pen is very difficult to meet Under those circumstances where you have an almost perfectly square lot that meets the minimum lot size, but given the location of the residence, it really restricts the area that that corral could be located in. He didn't mention that, but we did discuss that. Yes. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for that. Based on the factors in favor of approval, staff recommends approval of docket VAR 2503, reducing the minimum required horse corral setback from 50 feet to 0 along the south property line and to 5 feet along the west property line. This would be along Cemetery Road. And horse corral shade structure from 50 feet to 5 feet along the south property line with the following conditions. The horse corral shall be cleaned regularly to prevent the proliferation of odors and flies. This is more of an animal welfare condition. No more than 2 horses shall be kept on the property. That's typically because animals such as horses don't necessarily do well when they're by themselves, so we would prefer to see them have a mate or a companion. Obviously, that's up to the discretion of the board as to whether or not the board would like to adopt that condition. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any discussion?
I think we discussed all we need to discuss.
Yes. Well, as I can say from living in Pomerene, I enjoy the country atmosphere, and my neighbors have horses, and, you know, I don't have a problem with it either. But anyway, do we hear a motion?
Yeah, I'll make a motion, here we go. I was waiting for that. Okay. I move to approve docket VAR 25-03 with conditions recommended by staff, the factors in favor of approval constituting the findings of fact.
Do I hear a second? I'll second it. Okay, call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried.
Thank you.
So you got the variance with the conditions, and probably you'll be talking to Mr. Taylor here in the future, the near
Thank
future.
you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So if you come to hear this item, you're welcome.
Yeah, you can stay here if you want, or leave, whatever. We got another docket coming up, so.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, guys.
No, you'll be contacted.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you very much.
you're welcome.
Thank you.
Without-
Thank you. And yes,
Yeah.
thank you. Thank you.
You too. But I'm staying for house. Yeah.
All right. Thank you. I'm sorry. Thank you. Now, tomorrow? Or
I'll send you a
whatever.
letter, a notice of action.
All right. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yep.
Okay, are we ready? You are the applicant?
I do.
Okay, good. Okay, the next issue, variance docket VAR 25.04. Applicant initiated variance request from section 2.51.130 of the zoning regulations to reduce the minimum required parcel size for keeping horses from 36,000 square feet to 23,522 square feet. The minimum required setback for a horse corral from 50 feet to 0 feet along the east, west, and south property lines. The minimum required setback for a horse corral shade structure from 50 feet to 0 feet along the east and west property lines. Property is located at 193 South Rainbow Ranch Road near Hereford. So at this time, I will call for the planner's presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, board members. This is the staff presentation for docket VAR 25-04. The applicant is Rhonda Jo Wilson. The property is located at 10193 South Rainbow Ranch Road. That would be tax parcel 10446-370. Property is zoned MH72. That's a multifamily district that requires a minimum lot size of 7,200 square feet. The variance request, as you stated, Mr. Chair, is to allow a reduction of the minimum site area to keep livestock, as well as a reduction in the minimum setbacks for a horse corral and shade structure. Property is located in Miracle Valley, approximately 10 miles west of Bisbee. The property is also located within Miracle Valley Unit Number 3, which is a platted subdivision that was platted in 1968. It's about 3/4 of a mile north of Highway 92. The properties to the south and west are zoned residential, and the MH zoning is for the balance in the dark blue area. This is an image of the plat for the property showing the dimensions of the parcel. Those dimensions have not changed since 1968. The applicant has demonstrated the location of the residence as well as a storage structure, which is an old recreational vehicle, I believe, that was left by a previous owner, as well as the area to the bottom of the image, which would be the corral area for the horses, which totals about 9,600 square feet. These are some drone images. This is a viewing east. This shows the property's location it has 3 street frontages. That's an 80-foot right-of-way along Rainbow Ranch Road, which is a very significant right-of-way. Even though you can see some of the area in the foreground of the red line, it appears to be the applicant's property, but it's not. It's actually public right-of-way based on that plat. The area in dark to the right, that's the area where the horses are kept. And it's about 9,600 square feet. This is another image. I believe this image is viewing to the south. And then this image is viewing to the north. I would note that the property to the right of the applicant's property, they also have a horse on their property. And you can actually kind of see the horse almost in the approximate center. I won't go through this again like we did the first time, but the zoning regulations identifies livestock, minimum site areas for keeping of livestock. Again, this parcel is in its original configuration as adopted back in 1968 prior to the adoption of the zoning regulations. Animals are required to be confined or restrained unless otherwise exempted through an agricultural exemption process. Stables, barns, pens, shade structures must be a minimum of 50 feet from any property line. Additionally, any of these pens or structures would have to comply with all applicable law. The variance factors, there are 8. Hardships, peculiar site conditions, hardships that are not self-created, minimum to afford relief. The variance cannot authorize something that's not permitted by the zoning regulations. An approved variance does not create adverse impacts to surrounding property owners. The variance would maintain harmony with the zoning regulations, and the variance would not authorize any condition that would be a violation of state or federal law. Staff noticed this variance application between 11 and 16 April, publishing a legal ad, mailing notices, and posting the property. Staff mailed 20 notices to property owners within 300 feet. We received 2 responses in opposition. Just wanted to touch on these. Since the opposing parties were not adjacent to, as is in the previous variance case, the comments were this is a residential district per the zoning regulations. Property is poorly maintained. The other one was, I do not want to deal with the smell. This will devalue my property. If too much noise, it's cruel to not provide shade. Factors in favor of this request does comply with 6 of the criteria for approval of a variance. Again, unique circumstances would be the property does have a frontage of 3 public roads, which significantly would reduce the lot size. Otherwise, some of the other lot sizes are larger. The nearest residence is more than 100 feet from the corral. Factors against this does the requested variance does not comply with 2 of those criteria. And Mr. Chair, that concludes staff's presentation of docket VAR 25-04. We are available for your questions, and the applicant is present.
Any questions?
Matt, just to clarify, you did say the right of way down there is 80 feet. It's funny because I was having a right of way conversation at lunch today, but you said it's 80-foot right of way?
Mr. Chair, Mr. Basenio, yes, the 80-foot right of way is along Rainbow Ranch, and I believe Connor Street may be 80 feet as well.
And, how long has the horse been?
3 years. my length of it here, of being here.
Yeah. Okay. We will open this public hearing and, you have 10 minutes, state your case.
Just short and sweet, my name is Rhonda Wilson. I moved here 3 years ago from Oregon. I've been a horse trainer, 4-H leader for not that old, but a long time. And so I had never purchased a home. I was living in a home I was able to, that somebody else was kind of buying a family thing. So I went from condensed to, from big to little. And moved here. I never bought a home before, didn't have any family or friends to help me through. So when I bought it, and if you can actually look up the address, it is sold as horse property. I mean, in the rental ad, in the sale ad, it is horse property. My realtor, knowing I had horses that she looked at, every property she looked at was horse property, and she also looked at this. So I was bought that. It was fenced like that already. In fact, the people, actually the brown and white horse, which is my neighbor's horse, she used to live there. And now she bought the property next door. And she used to have 4 horses and goats and all that. And then apparently before her, the owner actually had several livestock also. I was not aware. I'd been there 3 years. I get along with everybody. What actually brought this to light, we had no ideas. I have a bird permit. I used to be a firefighter. I have a bird permit, and that car used to go by slow all the time. No big deal. One day he went by, flipped me off. I don't know who he was. Skip forward several months. Me and a young man were working in the block area on this fence here, and a guy came by in a vehicle, came down, came back, parked directly facing me, and wouldn't leave. Finally, I looked at him and I went like that, and he gave a gun signal at me. I didn't know what he was. Like I said, I live alone. And I started to walk towards him, and he started taking pictures and flipped me off and did the gun signal. So the young man I was with jumped the fence, chased him down over to Cannon, and I called 911. Again, living alone, somebody pointing a gun, whether it's real or not, is not something I want. Didn't know. So apparently, I don't know the whole story, but they know each other. The young man that works for me doesn't always do the best choice things, but he helps me do fences. Step forward, I come back from vacation, and I've got a thing from the county. I had no idea any of this was even an issue. I then talked to my neighbor right next to me. Apparently, this gentleman is very well known with the county and the police. He lives 6 miles down the road. He doesn't even live in this area. He actually has a very large problem with my neighbor's mother, of all things, some water rights issue. He also did turn in my neighbor for stuff. Again, the county came out. I said, oh my goodness, I had no idea. What can I do? Blah, blah, blah. And I've been working on that. 3 days ago, I was out in this very front corner of my yard in the red, watering my yard, and I heard a vehicle. Looked up, and it was that same man, new vehicle. Did the gun thing at me several times. I went in, I was crying, I was scared. I've also at this time had a broken window. Called the police. My son went outside, the gentleman came up, and was the reason I laughed or chuckled when you guys showed the sign was the one complaint up above is really funny because we just took him to town. My son had coffee with him this morning, so I have no idea. The other one down on the bottom, when that gentleman that threatened me came and left, that's whose house he went to. So apparently, and I do know that he is also a methamphetamine gentleman, but that would ironically is the house he went to. But I had no idea, but I had not seen hide nor hair of this man since then. So that's what started it. I had no knowledge. You know, my horses are both quite elderly, and I ride them a little bit here and there, you know, go do stuff. I have a couple 4-H kids that borrow them if they need them. I by no means am getting any other horses, cows, goats, pigs, or otherwise, because I'd like to travel eventually, but I'll keep my tortoise, and I do have those 2 horses. And actually, nobody sent in anything good, but like that, the one in the red right next to it, the one next to it, and the one next to me and across, they all came over and said, oh my gosh, it's so surprising, just wanted to let you know, we love your horse. Some other lady now has asked, can I feed it carrots? I've done a lot of crying because I own this house, this is my forever home, and I hate not being liked, if that makes sense. And my thing is, that's where I'm gonna live. That's where I'm gonna stay. The fences are crap because they were crap when I got there. They now have 5-foot temporary fences. Horses don't get out, horses are fine. I am the one saying something about cruel. My whole pasture is trees with cover. They're plenty, and they wear fly sheets and fly masks. And one of the things he had mentioned, or it doesn't, right along that old thing, it's like you can tell they've used it like a fence. I was going to build a lean-to off of it, but before I built it, I was actually going to call the county before I ever met you guys and say, hey, can I build something here for them? But they have a lot of trees. I mean, you can just see it in that picture. They have a lot of shade. The icky fence is my neighbor's horse breaking through. But like I said, they're both elderly. They're not going to be around. I don't know how long horses vary from 18 to 30 years old. I've been training and riding my whole life. Those are just my last two retired beasts. And I just want to give them a good place to live till they're done. And as far as, like I said, I had no idea. I've never bought a house before. Finding out all kinds of other interesting things. So that's me. That's done.
Any questions?
I mean, no, I think the answer all, it's 2 horses that you have there now.
Yeah, it's actually this one here, their head down, and the one with the butt towards us. The brown and white one, as you can see over there, that's my neighbor's horse. Yeah.
And your neighbor has 2 horses also.
She varies between 1 and 3. She has like 2 lots together, so she has a couple of those.
Okay. Anybody else want to speak? No? Rebuttal? Okay. Hearing none. We'll declare this closed. Now, that's your mission discussion, and we have no discussion and planners.
Ready for that?
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Based on the factors in favor, staff recommends approval of docket VAR 25-04, reducing the minimum required site area to keep livestock from 36,000 square feet to 23,522 square feet. Minimum required setback for a horse corral from 50 feet to 0 along the east, west, and south property lines. And the minimum required setback for a horse corral shade structure from 50 feet to 7.5 feet, which is the setback requirement for the zoning district. Along the east and west property lines with the following conditions. Corral shall be cleaned regularly to prevent proliferation of odors and flies. And again, in the interest of the health of the animals, no more than 2 horses shall be kept on the property.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Any more discussion?
No.
Your motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve docket VAR 25-04 with conditions recommended by staff. These factors in favor of approval constitute the finding fact.
I'll second that motion. Any discussion?
I just have one quick thing. It's just funny is I spent over $100 last year on those special blood that eat flies. I learned it in Oregon. It works great. They actually do it. I put some on my neighbor's property too, and she said she couldn't believe the difference. So yeah, it is kind of nice to.
I have one question. Do they have a shade structure? I didn't see.
No, they've got the
I
trees.
think they got
They've
like,
got a lot of trees, and like I said, the way that little the shed that goes this way, and that was one thing is I was going to call. I would like to build something only because of the wind. I was going to do a temporary, but I used to work at Cal Ranch, and I watched a lot of people come in for replacements a lot for the wind. So I actually was going to build something using that as one wall, and it's in the middle. I mean, it wouldn't even hit any of the 50s, just as kind of a monsoon break and a heat break. But they've got quite a bit of shade all the time. So
does she need another request for, if she's gonna build a shade structure on it?
So,
Because this is just strictly for the.
yeah, no, like I said, it was something I was even questioning.
no,
before.
Mr. Chairman, the applicant did request the reduction in minimum site area as well as the reduction in corral setback. And during our conversation, she mentioned the intention to put in a shade structure, at which point I added that to her application. So she can build that shade structure and meet that 7.5-foot setback of the zoning district
Okay,
without coming back.
good, good. Okay, we had a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried. You have, and again, thank you, we talking to Mr. Taylor here.
Wonderful.
So,
Thank you much for everybody. I appreciate your time.
yes,
And how dare you be late? Don't do it again.
no, he's businessman.
You know, life happens. That's my answer to everything right now.
That's great. Okay, you can stick around, or
No, I'm good. I'm
we're
good.
almost done, but,
Yeah. All right, folks. I have a great evening.
okay,
Go home a lot of plants.
okay,
Thank you much.
you're welcome.
Bye-bye now.
Okay, that concludes all the public hearing. Now, let's hear your report.
We don't have any items right now for next month. So, stay tuned now. We have our next meeting with, P&Z is May 14th. So we'll have 4 items. Any special uses and reason.
Anything exciting going on up in, fighting neck of the woods up in northern?
It's very exciting. That's pretty much what we got planned, you know, aside from the board of supervisors meeting, that's all I've got. We have a little bit of a summer break, summer break.
But you don't have a new planning director yet?
We don't. No.
All right.
I have to see who's interested in coming to Cochise County or going into that director spot. Huh?
Close the posting, and they're in the interview process.
Okay.
It's definitely a long process.
Okay, well, hearing nothing more. 6:17, we will close the meeting. We will adjourn.